The European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and European Council President Charles Michel have signed the post-Brexit trade agreement. The deal, struck on Christmas Eve, defines a future trading relationship which will come into force from Friday. EU ambassadors from all 27 EU countries had already given the document the go-ahead. The treaty will be scrutinised by the European Parliament in the new year. Let's cross now to Brussels, where we can speak to Euronews reporter Jack Parrock. Jack, this was more of a ceremonial occasion rather than a political one.
It is indeed, Oliver. So they needed to get this signature done. They just came out, the pair of them, signed the document, didn't really talk too much to the press, didn't make any press statements, and headed off for the rest of their day. Because really what needs to happen now is this scrutiny in the European Parliament. We understand that they might not vote on this deal until February, even March. So this provisional agreement will come into force at the end of the Brexit transition period from the 1st of January. And what's interesting about it is while it's being voted through officially, not provisionally in the United Kingdom today, this provisional agreement will come into force, and those MEPs in the European Parliament will be able to see whether the UK upholds the agreement in that intervening period before they decide to vote on it come, as we think, the end of February, the beginning of March. So that's an interesting period where those parliamentarians will be watching exactly what the United Kingdom is doing. Now, we have also had confirmation that this deal isn't going to need for provisional ratification votes in the national and regional parliaments. It is only the European Parliament on the European side that needs to vote this through.
Thanks, Jack. Jack Parrock joining us here from Brussels. Well, that deal is now on its way to the UK, but before Boris Johnson signs on the dotted line, Parliament will have a vote on what they call the EU Future Relationship Bill. The British Prime Minister will tell MPs this deal delivers a historic resolution, making the country a friendly neighbour to the European Union. The UK's Brexit transition period ends tomorrow night. Let's cross over to Victoria Smith. She stood just outside the Palace of Westminster. Good morning to you, Victoria. Politicians in the building behind you face a late convened and frantic day of politicking.
Absolutely right, Oliver. Good morning. Yes, in the house behind me, in fact, both houses will have a mammoth 5 hours of debating today to get this bill made into law. That's the House of Commons, followed by the House of Lords. It is expected to get through the House of Commons. There will be some opposition, but it is expected to get through because of the support of Labour. The opposition party has been whipped to support the bill. Some are voting against, some are abstaining. We'll also see the nationalist parties from the devolved governments voting against, as well as the Greens and also the Lib Democrats. But the right-wing Brexiteer group, the ERG, the European Reform Group, they've given the bill its blessing to be made into law as well. Now, this is an unusual rush. I mean, it's taken all this time to get to this stage, and now there's one day for Parliament to have a look through the more than 1,000 pages and to make its decision. And the Queen is on standby. This is meant to be going on all day today, this debate well into the night. She's on standby to give her royal assent close to midnight, possibly in the early hours of tomorrow morning. As I say, the bill is expected to get through. Boris Johnson's calling it a good deal for jobs. It means there'll be no tariffs or quotas on imports and exports. Labour, however, is saying it's a thin deal, but better to vote for it than to vote for a no-deal Brexit. That's the position at the moment.
Victoria joining us there from College Green. Thank you very much indeed. Well, now let's cross over to Simon Usherwood joining us from the UK in Guildford. He's a professor of politics at the University of Surrey. First of all, this could be the first time in a long time that the Conservatives have been united on Europe.
It could well be, and I think that reflects a common desire to move on the discussion. You know, coronavirus is a major challenge at the moment in the UK, much more pressing in many ways than Brexit. And this really is the culmination of getting a very hard Brexit, which many backbenchers want. And I think Number 10 will be happy to move away from talking about Brexit in the way that they have for the past 4 or 5 years so they can talk about other things. And I think that's really going to be the leitmotif of this. As much as the ERG group, as was just being said, have given their approval, we haven't really got a very detailed discussion of the provisions. And I think we're going to find in the next year a lot of these points of this bill and this treaty coming back to haunt backbenchers as they realise quite what they've signed up to.
Now, it seems like half a lifetime ago, but if we cast our minds back, parliamentarians demanded the right to get scrutiny of this bill when it was finally agreed, and now they're getting that scrutiny, but it's only a day.
Exactly. And I think this is a real challenge. As much as that slogan of take back control was so prominent in the referendum back in 2016, Parliament has really not seen very much of this. And the opportunity to discuss, let alone to amend the provisions of this text are basically zero. So this is very much a take it or leave it proposition. And I think we're going to see a degree of unhappiness, especially because, as was being said by Jack earlier, the European Parliament isn't going to be doesn't have to do this before it starts. So they will have time in February and March to have a more leisurely and in-depth scrutiny. So I think that imbalance is an issue that will be coming up again.
And it's also going to be interesting to see what the opposition parties do here, specifically looking at Labour on the one hand, but then we've got the parties from the devolved nations as well as the Greens and the Lib Dems, as Victoria was touching upon.
Exactly. I think for them, again, they also want to move on the debate. The question of rejoining the EU is a dead letter. So for parties like the Liberal Democrats, it's an opportunity to show that they disagree with policy. For the national parties like the SNP and Plaid Cymru, it's an opportunity to show that London doesn't care about the regions. And for Labour, it's an opportunity to try and show that they are able to make their policy move on. I think will be interesting to see how many Labour MPs go against the whip and either abstain or vote against. But at the moment, it very much looks like the UK is trying to move on to the next stage of Brexit, which may last for many years.
And I'm sure that's going to be music to the ears of so many of our viewers. Simon Usher were joining us there from Guildford. Thank you very much.